So role-based access controls at network level is quite complicated because you have to understand your scope and visibility of everything that's happening in your environment. So to quickly answer that, I'd say it's very hard unless you have something in place today that could learn, assess, analyze, provide identity context, and then build that in place. So not very easily. So when it comes to user role and identity to servers and granting access, there's a few approaches that are taken over today. One would be you use a cloud workload, they're managing everything for you, including the identity, and then they gain you access through like a just-in-time. That's not a bad approach. That is something that's completely out of your scope. You don't know the username and password, it's just managed for you. That's like a privileged access management tool with a password key vault, for example. Another approach, which is more common, let's just say you have an on-prem environment, you might have to have a multi-tiered aspect of privileged access management, key vaulting, if you can even gain access to it. So it starts getting kind of complicated very quickly. Where you can look at how Zero Networks approaches it. We approach it as a manner of we harden your environment, we allow you to use your existing credentials, and you can gain access into it if you are authorized and you prove you are who you say you are. Sounds simpler. Way more information we had to collect beforehand, but we make it easy for you. When it comes to least privilege policies or understanding traffic and information in general, there is a lot of tools in place out there today. And there's a lot of different approaches. It could be your firewall, it could be something that's monitoring your network traffic, it could be network packing, sniffing, like things can, it expands very far into possibly UEBA kind of technology. So learning what an entity does and what it accesses and what it, and how it talks to it. Their scope is wide. You can even argue a SIM tool could even bleed into this because it's a bunch of data and you can compile all that data together and kind of have an analysis. And that's where an LLM or something else to that scope could help you. But with that being said, there is a lot of nuances and things that could be missed. So that's where you need to start narrow down the scope of every entity in your environment, understanding the visibility of what the user is doing, what the machine's doing, what the application's doing, and then bridge that all together into a beautiful map. And that's where things start shifting as a business is I can understand what is communicating to what, how it's talking. As a simple example, let's just say you have an AI in your environment. What AI are you using? Do you know what is talking to your machine? Could I tell you today that you're using 12 different AI agents on your machine and you feel confident knowing which ones and what applications are using those? Most people don't know that. So that's a concern that might be addressable in this fashion. So how transitioning to a standard firewall to more of an identity-based control, it has to be done in multiple levels. And just to explain this clearly, you have to have something that's doing enforcements for you on that machine on the identity level. So that could be a process, that could be down to application layer, that could be to the whole machine as a whole. There is multiple approaches to this. From a simple terms, you can use your identity provider, then you can get down to an application layer, and then you can get down to network layers in scope. With that said, there is simpler ways to be managing that. For like tools are out there today that can help you automatically do this. For example, Zero Networks is doing a lot of this for you automatically. It is vendor agnostic and it's hardware agnostic. We don't require a firewall in order to do what we're doing to make an identity level perimeter, for example. But we do require your identity provider to do the communication in some form or fashion so we can have some correlation of who you are, who you say you are. It's just a different approach where some take it as I'm a network vendor and I'm going to focus on the network traffic. Everyone kind of does it differently, but I would say the identity level, being identity first, is a key element here because as you may or may not be aware of, 90% of incidents start on the identity level. Okay, so when it comes to practical steps from preventing lateral movement, just like there's proper hygiene, there's least privilege access. It's really the zero trust mindset. Actually, that's why zero trust is becoming huge in the market today. Is why do you need to be over privileged? You should be least privileged and then ask for elevated privilege when necessary. So that's the common approach. Is that doable today? Not always. Every industry, every market is a little bit different. Heck, I've worked with companies, or let's just say school districts and professors that were unwilling to do multi-factor authentication because it was just too complicated for them. So they just said, I'll write everything down on a piece of paper. That is more secure in their mind if security is a concern, until someone steals that paper and changes the, grades or something. But in the end, it makes it there's certain approaches. I would say there's frameworks, and zero trust is probably the approach I would go, and that would be my recommendation today. So when it comes to auditing and visibility and control, zero trust has a natural byproduct of always never trust, always verify. So because of that, it has to have a methodical approach of understanding your whole entire communication flow. Me as a user, for example, Chris, should I be talking to this application? Yes or no. Should I be talking to this network asset? Yes or no. Should I be connecting to a cloud asset? Yes or no. So if you do it appropriately, you have to see that breadcrumb trail. And that breadcrumb trail provides this beautiful image to auditors, cyber insurance, compliance regulations. All of a sudden, you could just say like, hey, I know exactly what Chris talks to. I know what he works on. It's not a bad thing. It's just I can prove that Chris is doing what he's supposed to do. And I can prove that these assets that are key company assets that we are insuring, think of the master database for all your source code and all the spicy information for your business, is now contained appropriately because I can prove it. That's the main thing. That's a huge factor right there. And that's where zero trust and the concept of least privilege comes into play.